Regarding the situation in Yemen, would Britain call for cessation of aerial bombardment? As the Secretary General has voiced his concern regarding that, and he said he blamed aerial bombardment on most of the civilian casualties.
Well, we're very keen. We had a very fruitful meeting today, 2 hours, where we discussed Yemen in detail, and we had a presentation from the UN Secretary General's Special Envoy, and to discuss these very, very matters indeed. We obviously want to see an end to the violence. We want to see an end to the civil war, and we've called for all parties to come together to create that important ceasefire. We have to bear in mind that not only is it a tragedy that the country is in a position of war, but there are 20 million people that are suffering from the humanitarian catastrophe there. So the sooner that we can get the parties together, the sooner we can actually agree on that ceasefire, then the sooner the violence and the military campaigns will stop.
Resolution 2216 clearly states that those who are responsible for spoiling the political process should be made accountable, or should be brought forward, at least shamed and named. Are we close to that? To identify them at least?
2216 is one of the important resolutions. There's also the GCC initiative. There's also the Partnership for Peace documents that have been put forward. There are many initiatives which are forming the basis for which we are trying to get the political discussions to move forward. What we want to see is to make sure that those who are accountable are held to account. But the 2216 is not a prerequisite for those talks to actually take place.
Do you believe that defeating ISIS alone, or ISIL, can be achieved in one country alone without, taking into consideration the regional dimension of that organization?
I don't. The problems we're now seeing in Iraq, as we do defeat ISIL and get on the upper hand there, means that we're seeing this brand appear in other parts of the region as well. We've seen this in Libya with Ansar al-Sharia joining the brand of ISIL. We've seen it also in Nigeria with Boko Haram. And this is very, very worrying indeed, and it shows the challenge that we face. This is the largest extremist challenge in the 21st century, and it requires all countries to look very, very carefully at how we defeat this ideology, how we defeat this extremism, because it does tend to grow in places as we tend to put it out in other places.
You are not on line with the Russians who believe that the regimes should be supported, or their armies should be supported. Coordination should come into place here so that the strikes against ISIL and the likes of ISIL, like Nusra, for example, which is almost forgotten, should be also made more orderly.
Well, I don't firstly agree that the strikes in ISIL have been forgotten. Britain is the second largest contributor to the air campaign in Iraq. It is providing surveillance and intelligence over Syria as well. And we are seeing gains in Iraq and making the space for the Iraqi army to be able to take over the very, very land that ISIL has taken. What you described as these attacks by Russia, I'm afraid also is subject to question. It's still early days. We're still trying to understand exactly what targets Russia actually hit. But it'll be a very sad day indeed if they are seen to firstly prop up Assad, the very person that has caused the space for ISIL to develop in Raqqa, in the north of Syria. And also it'd be a retrograde step in the political process in trying to get Damascus to be able to have better representation of the free Sunnis.
Likewise, one would say that if you hit ISIS alone, and if you hit some other groups like Nusra who hit the army, that emboldens and empowers ISIS and the likes of them as well.
Again, I'm not sure I agree with that analysis. ISIS, Daesh is an ideology that we need to take on. It is not appropriate, not wanted by the absolute majority of Syrians. But likewise, we are seeing President Assad, that doesn't also reflect the needs and wants and aspirations of Syria itself. As I say, he has provided the space by bombing his own people, by dropping chemical weapons, by dropping the barrel bombs as well. He is not suitable to be leading the country, which is why we believe that Russia shoring up Assad in this way has been a retrograde step.
So you think that in the transitional period he has no role at all?
Well, a transitional period, we want to move forward as urgently as possible. It's recognized now that we need to make sure that the Free Syrian people are best represented, and that needs to happen as soon as possible. But by Russia coming in and supporting Assad, that's actually delayed the political process from moving forward.
On the refugee issues, did you find any common background or any common ground with the Gulf states to host some of these refugees or increase their contributions to their help?
Well, I think many of the Gulf states are doing a huge job in taking on board many refugees, and indeed Britain is providing funds in various locations across the Middle East to support those. And I pay tribute to countries such as Lebanon, such as Jordan and so forth. And indeed there's other Gulf countries, as you mentioned, that are taking on refugees. Indeed in Saudi Arabia they have taken hundreds of thousands, not only providing them shelter, but also providing them education and health services as well. Some countries are publicizing this more than others, but absolutely all countries, given the scale of what we're dealing with, need to look at how best that we can help those people who are caught up in this terrible tragedy.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
My honor. Thank you.